Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, it's time again for another Star Trek rewatch, an Oh Yeah Star Trek rewatch, and but this time it's an Oh Yeah Star Trek read, the comics division, because we're talking to Davey Baker. I like Davey. I like that. So does that make me Goliath? Hi, Davey. Right? I love that coordination show.
Mm-hmm.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you too, John. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. We're going to talk about your comics. We're going to talk about your YouTube stuff. We're going to talk about some adventures in screenwriting that cracked me up that you told me about. Oh, look at you. You ditched the mohawk.
Yeah, it was getting so long and everything. I had like a weird mullet, so I was just like, all right, I'm gonna just shave it for now, and then it'll grow back, you know.
That's fine, man. That's all right. Well, I'll be like your grandfather right now. That's good. You look good. Now you can get a job.
Yeah.
All right? Enough fucking around with the mohawk. You're 40, for God's sake. I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not 40. Don't worry, boys and girls. Dude, seriously, great to see you. And congratulations, man. Let's talk about Seven's Revenge, an IDW Star Trek Voyager story. You capture the tone. Angel Hernandez giving us some exceptional art. And yeah, I mean, God, it's on the title card of the episode, and we just played the Star Trek theme with a shot of the cover. Seriously, man, congratulations! I really enjoyed this first issue.
Thank you very, very much. Yeah, as you know, I'm a huge Star Trek nerd. We've had many conversations about Trek stuff before, and to be able to work on the Trek comics is lifelong dream for me. I always say that I don't really care too much about work for hire licensed comics, but the two things I care about are Star Trek and the X-Men. And
attaboy.
Like I love Star Trek, and I love Star Trek comics, and there's so many great Star Trek comics, and I'm so thankful to be able to try and put my little brick on that wall. I'm super excited, and I'm very thankful to the people at both CBS and IDW because they've been great to work with, and it's been super fun.
Well, I'm glad they approved everything because truly, I could see you writing for Star Trek television or film. You capture these voices expertly. It's a story that happens before they get back to Earth, and I think that's great. I should ask real fast, before we get into the story, you mentioned Star Trek and the X-Men. I've never read that Peter David crossover book with the Next Generation and X-Men. Yeah, is it great?
I like it. I mean, I like both that book and the X-Men Wildcats stuff that they did. I'm not gonna lie. I'm such a mark for like weird crossover stuff,
sure.
like that Travis Charest World War II grifter Logan story. Yeah,
nice.
Sign me up.
Nice. I feel the same way. There's a million things like that I love that are like odd crossovers. God, I always loved in movies in the 90s when Michael Keaton's character starts off in, oh God, now I'm blanking, Out of Sight. and then also winds up in Jackie Brown, and it's like
Yeah, yeah.
that's and it was so cool that both studios and filmmakers are like, oh no, we got to do this. This will be great.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
or even just like the little connective tissue, just in general that Tarantino puts in all his movies, where they all kind of take place in the same world. So if you're
Oh yeah.
paying attention, they all lap over, and certain characters are related, and there's like the same commercials, the same brands, or
Yes, the
whatever.
cigarettes and everything, and Jackrabbit
Yeah,
Slim, and then oh yeah, no, 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 I'm totally with you. And I think I
yeah.
got the order mixed up with the Elmore Leonards there. I think Jackie Brown was first, then Get Shorty. But
Oh
that's
man,
a or
John, we
whatever.
gotta we
Or
gotta we gotta pull
out of
your
sight.
crime nerd
I know,
card,
I know.
bro. Come
Yeah, exactly.
on.
Hey man, I'm telling you, jeez, are you kidding me? Rucka would have me
No, but
in the tool shed
I'm a
already.
I'm a big fan of that world building stuff like that. Like for all the indie comic stuff that I make with Nicole Gu, who's the artist of DC's Shadow of the Batgirl. If you haven't read it, you should. It's very good. But for all the indie comic stuff we make, it all takes place in the same universe, and there's like we have 3 or 4 different books that all take place. One's going to be published by Dark Horse, which hasn't been an book bootleg.
Okay, we got unfortunately Dave has joined the Phantom Zone. So Dave, if you can hear me, I'm gonna take you out. You might want to reboot there. And yeah, well, all right. It looks like he checked out, so he's gonna probably reboot in a second. I'm telling you, everybody, IDW is killing it on these Star Trek comics, and Dave's Voyager comic is no exception. How are we now, David?
Oh, we're good, I think, right? I
Okay.
don't know.
Yes, you started to say as you collaborate with
Oh yeah,
your
so
friend that's doing Shadow of the Batgirl at DC.
yeah, yeah. Nicole Gu, all of our indie comics books all take place in the same universe. Like we have a book
Oh,
coming out from Dark Horse that hasn't been announced yet. Forest Hills Bootleg Society, which is coming out through Simon and Schuster, and Fuck Off Squad, which is put out by Silver Sprocket. They all take place in the same universe, and they have overlapping characters. And
that's
but you don't
great.
need to read. You don't need to read them.
No,
Like
it's just fun.
it. Yeah, exactly. There's like, oh, that's the weird movie that they were watching in the other thing. Just helps everything. I love interconnected kind of mythology stuff, which is why working on Star Trek is so fun because there's so much of it.
No, I agree, man. All right, let's get back to Seven's Revenge or Seven's. Pardon me.
Seven's Reckoning, yeah.
Seven's Reckoning. Pardon me. And no, it's a really neat story. This is early on after Seven has joined the crew, so you figure it's somewhere in season 4, probably.
Yeah, it's actually specifically in between Scientific Method and A Year of Hell Part 2 or Part 1.
Okay,
It takes place right in that
that's great.
area.
Sure.
Yeah, which
And
is why there's a nod and a wink to like when Janeway gets her haircut, which there's a that so it has to take place in that part. A because of what uniform Seven is wearing. She's wearing the brown one from Scientific Method with the really high collar,
yes,
and Janeway's hair. Those are like the two. There'll be some stuff later on that'll be plot wise, but for people who are paying attention and are kind of Trek nerds, those are the little keys of where it is.
but honestly, Dave, like when Tuvok and Janeway have the conversation about her new haircut, you nail it, man. I mean, that's the thing. There are like these great story moments that are all about the big story itself, but there are these great character crew interludes that ring very
Thank you,
true. Truly,
thank you very
absolutely,
much.
man. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
you got their voices, man. Yeah.
Tuvok is my favorite character in all Star Trek,
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
I
I really like. I'd say Tuvok's my favorite Voyager character, and he's probably in my top 10 if I really sat down and created a top 10. But yeah, I really like Tuvok. Tuvok is next to Spock, who of course is in a class. He's kind of like Connery Bond,
yeah,
a
yeah,
class
no,
by himself.
he's the OG. I get it, he's the
Yes,
best, but for
but
me,
Tuvok's great. Tuvok
I and
of all the other Vulcans, he's the most developed. You get him. Go on, tell me. Yes, your
well,
views on
the
Tuvok.
reason I like him so much is because there's so much verisimilitude with his character. He's some of the other Vulcans are a little one note in that they're so logical and they kind of or they just don't know how to write them and they're Vulcans but they're not Vulcans. They're like really emotional or they get angry or whatever. But specifically with him, he's such a nuanced character. He's very rigid and firm in his beliefs, but he also has this kind of like funny sense of humor and he really has Janeway's back. And that's one of the things I really like about the character is that he's a firm I will go to the ends of the earth for you. But it's not a romantic thing. It's
No.
we are best fucking friends. And I
Yeah, no.
love that.
You know, dude, and again, this is why I love Voyager, and especially why I get angry at new CBS Star Trek, the television product, and
Mhm.
frankly, the second two films I don't think lived up to their possibilities, and that's the thing, man. No, it's and again, I'll make this brief because I know I say it all the time. CBS really wants you to know how diverse Star Trek is. I mean, they're really fucking diverse. Have you noticed? We have a lot of diverse characters. We're even adding more diverse characters. And all Voyager and the other past Treks did was do it without any fanfare. It's just, this is our world, these are our characters, accept them or walk away, and we all accepted them. And we're all like, this is a great future. Isn't that fantastic? As opposed to, look, diversity, fucking diversity. And it's like, hey man, I'm cool with diversity, have been for 50 years. One of the reasons why I'm a Star Trek fan. There's my editorial.
I mean, I don't necessarily feel that it's that aggressive, but to each their own, my friend. To each their own.
You know, I just again, yeah, and I love that Voyager is such a balanced crew of. I mean, some people, and I get the feeling, and especially even older viewers than me, are like, yeah, you know, at this point, Voyager is a copy of Next Generation, which is a copy of the original series, and it's like sometimes, but if you look at the characters, they do have their own reasons for existing. They're interesting. They are nuanced. I think a lot of them. I think Balana's
Yeah.
nuanced.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think Harry's nuanced. I think, you know, again, and they have the, you know, their. I like John, or not John Billingsley. That's of course Phlox.
Yeah.
I like Ethan Phillips, and there are times when they write him incredibly annoying. But also, that's kind of part of the idea is that he is this weird alien, and I love
Yeah,
the
I'm
Tuvok
so
Neelix dynamic.
I'm so fascinated by Star Trek's obsession with the annoying character. Like they love it. They put the annoying character in every show, and I don't quite know that it ever really works. And it's kind of fascinating to me of this almost like Sisyphean itch that Berman and all those guys had of just like, no, we're gonna build a really annoying thing and then make you love it, but it never really works. And it's very fascinating to me. I
So
don't
did you
quite know where that comes from with those
on
guys.
on Enterprise? Did you think that was Phlox or? Because I think Phlox
Honestly, there's
was
a
what.
few characters on Enterprise it could have been.
Yeah, no, honestly,
think
I mean, and again, I don't know how much you want to break bad, and I'm not looking to break bad
no,
necessarily,
no. I
but
mean,
I mean
look,
that's
I
like I
think there's
think by the time, as far as weird alien on the ship or whatever, by the time they got to Phlox, I think they got it, and I love Billingsley's subtlety while having to play so broadly in that makeup and stuff.
Yeah, I think specifically with Dr. Phlox, I wish that they would have leaned into certain aspects that they now kind of retroactively say, like, he's the first bisexual doctor. And it's like,
Well, no, but they
he
did say that on the
is.
show. They did
Yeah,
say
they
that on the
say
show.
it, John. They say it. Like, I want to bring his husband that he's married to on the show,
They could have
give
done
them a
that. Maybe.
romantic arc. Like, that's what I want. I don't want lip service of just
Well,
like,
but
he's
again,
bi.
they said it, and I also think, and again, forgive me, hetero white guy saying this, but it's like they said it, they acknowledged it, and you did see that he was in an open marriage, and that was very aggressive, and yeah, they leaned into the hetero relationship that he had. I get that, um, but
I guess,
but all I was going to quickly say, and I do want to hear what you think of this, is the flag was already planted. Maybe they didn't do as much after they planted the flag, but what drives me nuts about new Star Trek is they don't have the knowledge of these previous things. One of my favorite moments in a couple, either I think it was last year's Star Trek Las Vegas. They had all the doctors that were still alive on stage, and they got to Wilson Cruz, who plays Culver, and so, what do you think? The question was, what do you think your show is going to be most remembered for? And you might remember this too, referencing that Phlox, I acknowledge that he
yeah.
was bisexual, but yeah, he's like, well, diversity clearly, and it's like, yeah, I guess again, it's like that's awesome. All of us managed to do some diversity in each decade that pushed the bar a little bit further. As far as it could go, no, absolutely not. But I
Yeah,
think
I was in the room when they had that conversation,
go on.
and I again, it's interesting that is something that you kind of grapple with as a Star Trek fan because it's so hardwired into Star Trek, And I think for a while, not that it went to the receded, but I just think it wasn't. I think the idea of infinite diversity and infinite combinations is a very powerful idea. And I think it's something that we need to always be pointing a finger at because there are so many forces working against that. So I guess I'm just curious as to what, I mean, look, I think there's some great stuff that the new Star Trek has done and some really bad stuff the new Star Trek has done. Like every Star Trek, there's always a mix of everything. So I'm curious, what about the way that it's handled now feels different to you than the other incarnations?
I seriously, I love this conversation right now. And again, we will get back to your books, I promise you. And also here, let's real fast just acknowledge some comments before we continue. I assume the actor character faces a license to be portrayed. Don't know how that works. They get residuals. I thought Angel did a very decent representation of all the characters. Angel Hernandez.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the downside with a lot of Star Trek comics is that they look like traced photos. The upside is that, you know, you're really grounded in these, in air quotes, actors. So you really, so there's that balancing act which a lot of Star Trek comics struggle with. And I mean, for my money, Angel did an amazing job because he's not tracing photos, but they are referenced, and he's trying to capture the actor's likeness. But even more so than the actor, it's really the character. He's drawing Tuvok that is informed by photo reference of Tim Russ, but he's not drawing Tim Russ. You know what I
I
mean?
agree. I do, and I agree with you. And is it Amanda Wildman? I always forget what Wildman's first name is.
Samantha Wildman.
Samantha. Thank you. Close enough. Not
Yeah,
bad.
yeah. Naomi Wildman is the daughter.
Oh, I
and
know the
Sam
daughter.
is the
Absolutely,
mother.
I know
Yeah,
Naomi because
yeah,
Seven always says it. Naomi Wildman. You know, it's like, all
yeah.
right, good. We know where
Yes.
she is.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I love Samantha. Samantha's a great character, and I'm really glad to see her in an active role
yeah.
in your story as well. All right, one more, and then we'll get back to this conversation. Tuvok is underrated, funny. I imagine he does stand-up sets when off duty. That's very good, Ed. That's very good.
I wish I had had that idea. I wish that I had pitched that instead of this. I would love can you imagine like a King of Comedy story where Tuvok is trying to master comedy? That sounds great to me. I would love
Take
to write that.
take my wife, please. Yes, exactly. No, that'd be great.
Yeah,
And well, it reminds
yeah,
me, of course, that classic Next Gen where Data's unfortunately learning how to be funny from Joe Piscopo. It's like,
yeah,
Data. Oh man, dig deeper in the file, Data. I'm sure Memory Alpha has much funnier
yeah,
people that you could choose from. Anyway, all right. My problem
yeah.
with New Trek and the way they handle storytelling and character is, first of all, I don't believe they have shown that they are good at the one story per season overarching story. I think their stories are muddled. It's obvious that they were rewritten halfway through, and there's no showrunner direction. Partly because they keep replacing them, but also I just feel like so that's one thing. I also think they play at Star Trek. I don't think they really live, eat, and breathe it. And frankly, reading things like the 50-Year Mission books that Marta Goldman wrote, a lot of writers, it was almost frowned upon. I know Ron Moore apparently was like, oh, the Star Trek geek. You know, and kind of the, not outsider, but definitely not part of the group as far as, no, we don't want Star Trek. We want new writers to bring in new ideas into Star Trek. I'm not seeing new ideas. I'm seeing a lot of sci-fi tropes, and them kind of leaning on one story per season. I think that hurts. I don't like the focus of the show only being about Michael Burnham. It's nothing against Michael Burnham as a character, but Star Trek's the best Star Trek is always an ensemble show. And while I understand that it was an ambitious creative choice, I think they're failing. And also, when you get ironic lines like, and I forget her name, but the cybernetic character from Discovery before she dies, oh my God, Michael, it's all about you. And we're all like, yeah, we know. I mean, that's what the last two seasons have been. It's all about her. I
Mm-hmm.
like the way they handled Pike. I think that was great. I am encouraged by what I'm hearing about Strange New Worlds, and I think it's a good idea to go more episodic. And problem of the week, but like I said, the best Star Trek, and it's been proven time and time again from the original. Well, there were moments in the original series, but there were more expanded in Next Gen, especially when Michael Piller took over as one of the showrunners and said, "Hey, we need this to be about them, the crew. We can have the problem of the week, but let's get a Worf story in there. Let's get a Deanna story in there." I still, after two seasons, don't know the name of the bridge crew. I do know the characters they've focused on in Discovery, but I don't think enough. And also, yeah, I don't. I kind of resent that Michael Burnham is a superhero, and everyone else is just, oh, Michael Burnham. She's the best Michael Burnham of them all. And I mean, I can't believe that Michael Burnham, took so long to come up with this solution. And her insubordination flies in the face of verisimilitude when it comes to the way Starfleet has been established. I can't believe. I mean, I'm not just talking about the pilot. I mean, literally, like, hey, we really got to go left. No, 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 Captain, we have to go right. Well, if Michael Byrne says so, I guess. And it's like, hey, I'm the fucking captain. That's really interesting, Burnham. Why don't you go to the brig and think about it a little bit? And that just doesn't happen enough. And she's, again, I just think she's the savior of every story. And they're only a couple, and they get kind of boring. So I'm sorry. There's my soapbox.
The funny thing is, I agree with a lot of what you said, and then some other stuff I don't agree with.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about the way that you laid out that discussion is that nothing in there was about this character is being given a spotlight where they shouldn't deserve it. This character is, being given too much screen time, and it's annoying because they suck. And that would be a symptom of your initial qualm of like it's forced diversity or something like that. So that's interesting to me. The Michael Burnham being overpowered and kind of really the main spotlight. Yeah, they haven't quite figured out what the equilibrium is for her. And they also don't write her like a Vulcan. That's the thing for me personally is like they should just literally copy Tuvok. She is Tuvok or she is Spock. Like
or Seven. Maybe
like just,
from the
just do that.
From the trauma of losing your parents the way she did to being raised by Sarek. And by the way, Sarek is a joke, the way they make Sarek. Sarek, the best thing about Mark Lenard, well, I mean, he is beyond where Spock got to by the time of Next Gen and Unification in terms of understanding and accepting humans. And for me, that great moment is in Star Trek IV at the end, when they come back to Earth and all is absolved, and it's Spock and Sarek, and he's like, my son, it's good to see you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, he's like, these crewmates of yours, they're of good character. Maybe I was wrong about my judgment about Starfleet. And Spock just goes, they're my friends. And he's like, yes, of course. That's Sarek. It's like, listen, Sarek is getting there, but he's still kind of stuck being old-fashioned Sarek.
Isn't the exact line from the episode something where he's like, they did an adequate job or something, like, or is that the earlier appearance? There's a line where he says, it's the one where it's the guest star on TNG where he talks to Picard and he is basically like, Picard, you did an adequate job, which is like the highest level of compliment for Sarek is you did an adequate job.
Right. And James, and I forget James's name, the actor that plays Sarek in New Trek. But anyway, he's bemused by Michael Burnham. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that's not Sarek. He's not there yet. It's 10 years before he meets Kirk and the original crew. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't buy this characterization. And shame on you for changing him so much. Because, again, it weakens the contrast. And then the other thing that I always said, especially in first season, here's an idea. How about getting a different Vulcan family to raise Michael Burnham? And therefore, that father and Sarek can compare their children and be like, I understand you raised a human. Yes. Well, I understand you have a son that's half human. Yes. And I always make the analogy, was Martin Luther King the only civil rights leader in the 60s? It's like, I don't believe that Sarek literally is the lone voice that understands humans, wants to understand humans. It cheapens Vulcan. And it cheapens the Vulcan society. Or there could even be the other contrast. I don't understand the humans. That's why I raised Michael to be more Vulcan. And I think that was a missed opportunity. And instead, all they want is, ooh, it's Spock's half-sister. Ooh. And that to me was just cheap. And it has yet to proven to be paid off and important. And I always say, hey, that's cute. You want to really impress me? Put Cybok in the middle of that duo. And let's see, and make Cybok suddenly matter. And that's very interesting, too. Because I would assume maybe Michael hates Cybok. Maybe Spock wants to be like Cybok when he's a kid. but is afraid of admitting to that. And again, that's an interesting dynamic of kind of the rebel older brother.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
again,
agree. When they first announced that Michael was going to be his sister, I immediately was like, I don't know if you need that. And then immediately following it being like, oh, I wonder if Cybok is going to show up. And who's to say? Maybe he will show up. And that would be cool. He's one of my favorite characters that doesn't get any sort of real screen time or development because it's such an interesting idea. Like, I love the idea of being someone who's fueled by pure emotion and rage and spite and
yes,
embracing everything antithetical to the culture that you're raised in. And I love that moment in Star Trek V where Kirk is like, "You can't have my pain. I need my pain." Like, it's so great, especially
yeah,
when you unpack that in like this idea of examining toxic masculinity and this idea of like, maybe Kirk, if you were more of a healthy person, things would go easier. Maybe you don't need your pain. Maybe you wouldn't always be like fighting everybody if you weren't just like a nut job.
that's
I don't
beautiful, man.
know.
No, that's beautiful. But again, you're right, and that's great. And also, Kirk stays Kirk. You can examine Kirk from a male toxicity standpoint if you want to, just as they have with James Bond, calling him
Yeah.
a dinosaur and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. That's interesting. Conflict is interesting. Rewriting a character, and again, I would point to Sarek as an example of that, is a missed opportunity and cheap. And I find a lot of the writing on new Star Trek to be hack and cheap. And I really don't even get me started on fucking Picard. Good lord. I really, yeah, I know. You see, you're awesome, David, and honestly, it's like, and I really appreciate that you can contrast my opinions. I want you to contrast my opinions. I want to understand what others like about new Star Trek, not to and truly not to condescend or shit on the opposing opinion. It's just it's not reaching me, and Star Trek reached me for 50 years, and I
Yeah.
don't understand why, as inclusive as it's always tried to be and push the envelope. And again, 80s and 90s, you can argue. I still think that unfortunately, there was probably a segment of the audience that wasn't accepting to the gay culture or whatever. But I mean, God, Deep Space Nine to do that great Dax episode, that's pretty much, hey, in your face. Guess what? Dax is a pansexual character. I mean, she's been other things, and that's great, and it's wonderful that they explore that. The what's the name of the Riker and the single gender race?
Oh,
Fuck.
the Outcast.
Yes, the Outcast.
They
Thank
called
you.
the Outcast, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and again,
Yeah.
all done with analogy. I understand. It was the '80s. There was still a portion of the population that was likely fearful of the gay culture and AIDS and things like that. And I think they, in the most traditional and best way that science fiction has always been able to do, is hit social issues with analogy and make their
Yeah,
point. And
I
I think
agree
they
with
did make
that.
their point.
I agree with that, but I also think that that is slightly rose-tinted glasses in that
Tell me.
there are characters in both of those shows that are codedly gay or codedly other things, but they couldn't do it at the time either for creative cowardice or lack of ambition or studio notes, right? Like
Right?
what's his face on DS9? Oh God, he's one of my favorite characters. Andrew Robinson played him.
Oh,
What is
Garrick.
the guy's name? Is it
Yeah,
Taylor?
yeah,
Garrett.
Garrick.
Yeah, Garrick is gay. Like, he's straight up gay, but they never say it. They never do anything with it, and it's this weird kind of like X-Men style. Like, yeah, Kitty Pryde and Rachel, they have a thing, but we can't say anything. Yeah, Destiny and Mystique have a thing, but we can't say anything because it's the '80s. And
So
like
you,
that's a perfect missed opportunity of like there should have been an episode or multiple episodes with Garrick where he either had romantic trysts or was manipulating people with his sexuality because he's a fucking spy, or the weird tension between him and the doctor, like Julian and him. He has a thing for Julian, like
oh,
straight up.
totally,
Has a thing for Julian,
totally,
but
absolutely.
they never mine it in because it was the '90s and that was either, like I said, studio notes or we're just not going to fight this battle or whatever. So there is saying that like Star Trek has a perfect record in the past and right now they're fucking up isn't really that accurate. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and again, I agree with you that there are bad episodes, but they have a better batting average than, frankly, than in my opinion, than Discovery or Picard, where again sticking to one story muddled things. They got noted, or they decided this is better. I mean, Picard, they started with Romulan Hobbit. I forget his name. That was the guy with the sword, the kid. Oh, he's frozen again. David's frozen again.
Oh yeah,
Everyone knows him.
yeah. I just always
Okay, you're
yeah, I
going
just
again.
always
You're
call
talking
him
now.
Legolas. Yeah, I just always call him
Legolas.
Legolas.
Yeah,
I never
yeah, yeah,
remember.
exactly. And
Yeah,
I don't remember. It's Elnor. Elnor, I believe.
Elnor. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because I was teasing him, calling him Eleanor. But yeah, I mean, it was obvious that they wanted there to be a father-son relationship with Picard. But then they're like, well, actually, it would be more interesting to do the father-daughter thing with Dodge. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure. But you decided instead of reshooting to keep that other stuff, and you abandoned the story. And
yeah.
and then you got Elnor, weeping over Picard, and it's like, he's been out of your life for a really long time, and I guess, and also, or that they put with Seven and Raffi that gay relationship at the end, and it's like, all right, where did that come from? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that one for
cool.
me, I was like, cool, but where did this come from?
I mean, that's the thing, man. And again, it's like, that's what I'm saying. That there is no real thought of story. It's, oh, put that in there. That'll be good. Ooh, have the guy in the wheelchair in the background in Discovery when things are really tense, and it's like, okay, you already showed us that there are cybernetic legs. I understand that you got poor Captain Pike eventually in the chair, but it just seemed to me that an active crew member being in a wheelchair was just odd to me.
Well, I
It
mean,
just,
I think that's an effort to speak to the core of what makes Star Trek so great, right? Like, there's that episode in TNG where that alien, or is it? I think it's an alien culture. They don't like his visor. They don't like Geordi's visor. And the end of the episode is him saving the day by using his visor. And he's like, "Hey, sometimes what makes me different makes me individual and unique, and it's a strength." And I think that showcasing people who are who utilize wheelchairs is something where that's cool because there's a verisimilitude, infinite diversity in infinite combination. John, it goes to the
I
core of what Star Trek
I
is.
I uh okay, there we go. We're back. There we go. David, there you are. Sorry about that, David. My internet crapped out on me and blew us out of the water for a minute, but we are back.
Word. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. I don't know if that was on my end or whatever.
There we go. I'm like,
There we
God
go,
damn it, not again.
man.
Son of a gun.
It,
I guess my
yeah.
internet's being persnickety. Anyway, I don't know. I like if they really wanted to do that with the character, make him a character. They didn't make him a character. He was in the background, and it's like, oh look, again, oh look, and it's like,
Yeah, I wish that was the case too. But I feel like there's a balance of, apparently they have a hard time even just utilizing the supporting cast that exists, which are all really cool characters that I want to know more about. So that's what I hope the new season
I
is
completely,
there's more supporting
I
cast. That's what I
I
want. Just give me
completely
more
agree.
supporting cast.
I know of a convention that was offered the bridge crew from Discovery, and the person is a Star Trek fan, and he's like, I've been watching for 2 seasons. I don't know any of their names. Why would I want them at a convention? And he goes, I defy most Trek fans going, that's Eyepiece Girl. That's the lady with the dreadlocks. That's the Asian guy. And shame on me for profiling, but literally, not dreadlock woman
Yeah,
and Eyepiece Girl always look shocked at each other, like, oh shit, what's about to happen? And that's about all I
yeah,
know about their characters.
yeah,
Or the one that died, the cybernetic woman. Jesus, we
yeah,
get her whole life story. They kill her, and then the next episode, they spend double the time on her funeral than they spend on fucking Spock in Wrath of Khan. And I'm like,
yeah,
I remember when we walked down the beach.
yeah. Gonna try. We'll see. Now, John.
Yes, it does. Jesus
Okay,
Christ.
I moved to a different area. Maybe this will
No,
help.
it's me. It's my internet loss, and I'll tell everybody now because I'm so sorry, everybody, that we keep popping out. If it does happen one more time, we can just bail. And I'm sorry. And again, let me first say, IDW's Seven's Reckoning is outstanding by Dave Baker and Angel Hernandez. But yeah, I mean, all right, maybe we're okay now. Hopefully, we're okay now.
Yeah, let's give it a shot. We'll
But
see.
Jesus, yeah, like yeah, Walmart Wi-Fi.
Walmart Wi-Fi. Yeah, for real, for real.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So, for the love of God, can we not have another Burnham mental emotional collapse? It happens too often. I would be terrified if Burnham was in authority. She's pretty unstable.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's good stuff, and then there's stuff that can be improved. But ultimately, the first 2 seasons of just about every Star Trek show is a little rough. So maybe I'm just a kinder person. I'm just like, look, they're CBS All Access needs Trek, so they're gonna keep renewing it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it will get good. Like they'll figure it out. It's gonna be a fine. There's stuff I don't like in all of them, but there's also really cool stuff too. Like like that big fight scene in the end of the last season was fun, where all of the Shorts characters showed up. That was really cool. Spock being retconned to have numbers dyslexia. Well, I wasn't a big fan of that, but that's just my
Yeah.
personal taste.
Well, again, I found that insulting to impress that on Spock rather than introduce another character with dyslexia. And it could be a Vulcan, it could be anybody. But it's like the way they rewrite characters is wrong. And frankly, it's like it's not evolving the character, it's devolving the character, and it's ignoring 50 years of continuity.
Yeah,
And then especially dyslexic Spock was just like, okay, I don't buy it, but okay. And maybe it was a temporary condition because of the Red Angels influence. Maybe they should have drummed that in a little bit more, but I don't know.
yeah. I mean, and
I don't
that's
know.
it's funny that we're talking about this kind of like characterization and like evolving characters and moving people around, because that was something that I was very cognizant of when working on Seven's Reckoning, because I especially in comics, where we both know the history of Star Trek comics, they're somewhat disposable. It's not like they're really hard continuity. They're continuity, and they're very referenced until they're not.
Right.
Like, and that's part of the beauty of them, because you have a real shot at like kind of like carving out your little niche, and sometimes people refer to that little niche. Like I still talk about the Chris Claremont Adam Hughes graphic novel A Debt of Honor, that thing is awesome, and it tells a story in between Star Trek 3 and 4 where it's all about Kirk mourning the loss of the Enterprise, and it's this like epic where Chris Claremont gives Adam Hughes likenesses to draw because Adam Hughes is so good at it. So
Sure.
he gives it, you see Kirk meet Bones when they're like, 19, and then you see them when they're 30s, and then you see them in their 50s, and then you see them in their 60s, and he draws them aging and changing and morphing in ways that you can't do in a movie. And that's the strength of Star Trek comics. And also Claremont, not that I'm anywhere near as good as Claremont, but I'm just saying that the attention that he paid to characterization and kind of committing, I'm making a fucking Star Trek comic. That was my goal, was like, I want to make the best Star Trek Voyager comic ever. Will I succeed? I don't know, but I'm going to swing for the fences.
That's the right attitude, dude. And again, I loved your first chapter. I thought it was great. Very consistent with characters. Very plausible story that would have been a great episode or even a great Voyager movie, depending on where you go. I've only read the first issue. But I like this race. I like their raison d'etre. And
Yeah, basically, the high concept of the story is basically, we follow the Voyager crew. They're coming back from, they're trying to get back home, Delta Quadrant, back to Earth, and they find a ship that's adrift in deep space. And I like that we've been talking for 40 minutes, and I'm just giving a bit.
Again, I appreciated the tangent on the shows. Go on.
Yeah. So they're coming back to Earth, and they're trying to get back to Earth. The whole premise of the show. And when they're in deep space, they run across this derelict vessel, which is an unknown alien spacecraft, and they go on board to try and see if they can be of any help because it seems like the ship is drifting lifeless.
Right.
On the ship, they find out that it's an intergenerational colonization craft that's been traveling for maybe centuries. They don't know it initially. And they find all these cryosleep tubes with aliens in them, and there's two like sects of the aliens. One sect that has two arms. They're like two-armed lizard people that are kind of like a higher class, kind of a ruling class, aristocracy, and then a lower class, four-armed, big, kind of brutish lizard alien, and they're kind of like a worker class. They're like not quite slaves, but they're like indentured servitude, bordering on slave.
Yeah.
And so the crew of the Enterprise makes a deal, like, we will give you 7 of 9's technological know-how if you give us some supplies, because we're running low. We're trying to get back to our home planet in the same way that you guys are trying to make it to this planet. And then from there, similar to the episode that you referenced earlier about Riker getting sucked up into this alien culture, the two episodes that I kind of was inspired by were The Outcast, and then the episode, which I'm blanking on the name of right now, from Enterprise, where Trip meets with the alien race that they have to have 3 people in order to procreate. I think it's called like the subjugate. It's called like the surrogate, the subjugate, something, whatever the episode.
Something like that, and I'm betting somebody in the chat might know if they're still with us.
Yeah,
Let's say they're still with
I
us.
should know, since it was one of the big inspirations for the story.
No,
but I'm blanking.
yeah, I caught both references, obviously, in your story, and I think that's great. And again, that's intelligent science fiction. That is really asking an interesting mental question. And again, forgive me, but it seems to elude those kind of high-minded questions. Seem to elude New Star Trek.
Yeah, like because the kind of like fulcrum that the story, cogenitor. Thank you,
Michael Conrad. Well done. Conrad.
Yes, cogenitor. The story kind of seesaws on this idea of, should 7 of 9 be involved in kind of freeing the subjugated class, or should she remove herself? Does it break the Prime Directive? Is it immoral for her to know that this is happening and take advantage of this situation and take these supplies that are going to help the Voyager crew on their journey home and survive off of it? Is that a moral thing to do? And the specifics of how that function are, this alien culture, their whole entire world revolves around the idea of story. So they tell each other's stories. They call their ship a narrative. They deem people that are worthy as protagonists. Like it's all kind of this metatextual commentary on the idea that the stories that we tell each other matter, and the story that we tell ourselves matters most of all. And so the thrust of the story is what happens when one of these slave aliens wakes up one morning and is like, I don't think these stories I'm being told are right. Maybe we should examine these stories, and maybe I should like write my own, metaphorically speaking, not literally. And so Seven and this character Grebe kind of get involved in this ideological push and pull of how far should we go, what's the appropriate response, is the all-knowing kind of authoritarian pseudo government on this ship, is it this way for a reason, is that actually path of least resistance the best way to govern for this specific culture? And that's kind of the ideas that the series plays with.
Again, if you're looking for smart Star Trek, usually IDW delivers, and really, honestly, Dave, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. You really deliver. Everything you said makes sense. It is reflected in the story, and it's smart Star Trek. And that's what all of us hardcore Star Trek fans, it's like, no, give us an intellectual problem to wrestle with, along with.
Yeah, that's what I want too. Like, and it's funny too, because I think it was like 2 or 3 episodes of Lower Decks ago, which one, I love Lower Decks, I think it's great, but 2 or 3 episodes ago in Lower Decks, it opens with an intergenerational colonization vessel, and they're like almost lizard people, and I freaked out. I was like, fuck, no one told me we're going to be doing the same stories. It's going to look like I ripped this off. And then immediately it goes in a completely different direction. But for like 5 minutes, I was watching it going, oh my God, why didn't anybody at CBS tell me? No.
That's hilarious. Well, they vetted you, so they approved your story, so that's cool. And they didn't
absolutely.
see the
ultimately,
to mess you up with.
They couldn't be any more different. They're completely different.
Oh, yeah.
But
I agree.
For that opening 2 minutes, I was sweating bullets. I was like, oh, fuck.
I won't bore you with my frustration with Lower Decks. I'm sorry to say. I really was rooting for it. I really liked the 3rd episode where Mariner and the first officer are stuck in the cave, and the alien race invades the ship. I thought that was a really good episode. Based on the 9 that we've watched so far. I love the design. I love the intro. Again, I find Mariner's character, and it hurts me, because it really does. I fear that people might misconstrue that, well, clearly it's another female character, and you got an issue with female characters. No, I really don't. I mean, I really loved, but like I said, B'Elanna and Janeway and Seven. Mariner is the solution to every problem. Her disinterest in Starfleet flies in the face of, and again, I know it's a cartoon, but you are playing in the Star Trek universe, and it's like, I don't buy that.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, John. There are plenty of characters that are slackers and don't do well in Star Trek. Like, Tom Paris is like a shitty dude, bro. Like, he doesn't care about Star Trek.
When Tom Paris fucks up, he goes in the brig. And yeah, but he's still a competent officer that is still a team player. Really? You don't agree with that?
No, that was me trying to think of, I can't think of an episode where he goes into the brig. What's the episode where he goes into the brig?
It was called 30 Days, where it's the ocean planet, and Voyager even goes underwater and stuff.
Yes,
that's the thing. And then that's one of those rare times when he really breaks the rules, to the detriment of his crew and of the Starfleet code. He's... Again, I think, unlike Mariner yawns during, briefings. And, last week she broke the Prime Directive and got a slap on the wrist for it and was sent to therapy. And it's like...
Come on, though, dude. Come on. Well, every Star Trek show breaks the Prime Directive all the time.
Usually there's consequences, or at the very least, an inquiry.
I don't know. I agree with that. There's a lot of episodes where it ends with them in the ready room, and Picard's just like, that was fucked up. Maybe we won't do that again. Okay, going on.
Well, most of the time, going even back to the original series, and Kirk did break the Prime Directive a lot. And yes, I forget if it was Kevin Pollak or whatever. It's like, your entire religion is based on fallacy. You must listen to me. We have something called the Constitution. And shit like that.
Yeah, the one where, is that the one where they go to the alien planet, and the alien planet's like not Nazi Germany?
Oh, well, yeah, that's another one, Patterns of Force. But they're fixing the Prime Directive break of John Gill, who is like, hey, you know what would really make your planet run better? Nazis! And it's like, What?
Yeah,
Well, what's the
yeah.
problem? Why is everybody looking at me? This is a good idea.
You
Yeah,
know,
thanks.
that episode too was them like somebody was walking to the office one day and they saw a bunch of Nazi uniforms and they were like,
Space
I got
Nazis.
this idea, guys. Let's write an episode
And
about Nazis on an
and,
alien
and
world because we got all these
seriously,
costumes.
and I truly do feel bad for Nimoy and Shatner being Jewish, and it's like, hey, we got a great idea, space Nazis, and it's like, yeah, maybe that's not a good idea.
Yeah,
How about
yeah, yeah,
no?
yeah, yeah.
But I don't know, man. I hear what you're saying, and you're not wrong. I don't buy. First of all, and again, this is an old reference. You'll forgive me. Mariner is Sergeant Bilko, Phil
Mm-hmm.
Silvers, and Steve Martin, even
Mm-hmm.
Steve Martin's movie as well. Where
Mm-hmm.
I joined. I mean, it's like I'm going to be in Starfleet, but I'm just going to handle the cush jobs and stuff. Yeah, I guess, and I don't mind that as a side character. But to make that your lead character and supposedly, hey, she's the cool, fun one. She's breaking all the rules. Man, she's a rule breaker, and it's like, yeah, but
But John, I mean, you're acting like you've never seen something before. You know
not
that
as a
her
lead
arc is
character.
going to be, but
Not
her
as a,
arc is going
well.
to, her
Go
arc
ahead.
is, I'm going to start off as someone who doesn't care about Star Trek, and then over the show, she's going to become someone who cares about Star Trek. Like that's what
Believe
that
what I say.
character is.
No, I think she's Rick of Rick and Morty without the years of experience of. All right, I'm an old man. I've seen the wonders of the
Yeah,
universe way too many times, and I'm over it.
but
Whereas Mariner's like, I'm 29. I've seen all the wonders of the world, and I'm over it. And it's like, I don't buy it. I'm sorry, I don't buy it.
don't you think over the course of Rick and Morty, he's going to evolve into be a slightly better person? He'll probably still be
Rick?
shitty, but
No,
yeah,
no. I think again, it's like no. At the end of the day, Rick loves his family, and he will protect his family. And even
yeah.
as fucked up as his relationship is with his grandson and his daughter, and his grandson and granddaughter, and his daughter, he's still, in his weird way, he still gives a shit. And yeah, I see that in Mariner as well. I just the amount of attitude I find very off-putting. And again, I think it's because it's just a young character that's like, hey, I don't care, I break all the rules, aren't I cool? I don't like. There's a ton of setups with no humor. I always point to, like, whenever the butt of the joke is, oh, like Riker's dog, or like, oh yeah, that's a Picard maneuver or something like that. That's member berries. That's not a joke. Or because essentially to me, that would be like Jerry Seinfeld coming out and going, hey, remember when there were Pop Tarts and you'd pull the ring and the ring would come off in your hand and the can would still be closed, and everyone would go, yeah, and then Seinfeld would be like, so the other day I bought a house. You know when how? And it's like, wait, what about the ring? Aren't you gonna like? That was the setup. Where's the fucking joke? There is no joke. Again, the joke is, hey, look, it's Picard. Hey, it's the Borg. Hey, it's the Riker maneuver. Hey, it's whatever. And it's like, okay, I get it. I know that, but that's not a joke. That's not funny. If I could be the old man again, how's that funny?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's pretty funny.
That's cool.
But I mean, to each their own.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I also think that being loud and fast is a cover. As I've learned when I used to do stand up, it's like, what if they don't get it? Then you go a little bit faster. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't make it funnier. No, but it'll get you through it, it'll get you to the next page. And that's, I find a lot of their, like, hey, am I right? Yeah, I'm right. Woo, high five. All right, hey. And I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of attitude. Not too much funny in there, but I get it. That's attitude. Whatever. And or like, hey, boy, that's like Sector 38. Oh, don't talk about Sector 38. Whoa. Hey, the counselor, he makes a lot of food analogies. Whoa, you're in a pickle. Hey, I get it now, food analogies. Jesus Christ. It's like, give me some fucking jokes, for Christ's sake. Anyway, I didn't mean to go there, but there's my lower decks rant. Oh, wait, and we've been having some comments, and I'm sorry, but these, I'm sure that, whatever, Lower Decks is the best of the new Trek shows, in my opinion. All right, Mike Coonran, I respect that. Lower Decks is meant to be fun, more than serious. It's really Star Trek. Of course it is. Star Trek, Rick and Morty. Absolutely it is. Member berries with attitude. Too cool for school. Louder more frequently. Yeah.
Is that somebody just quoting you, or did that get put up before you said all of your opinions?
I'm looking at the time. No, that was about a minute ago. So I don't know. Lower Decks is just lame as hell. What a pointless show. It's sad that this is the standard. Again, I think it's the best of the new CBS shows, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I really like it. I think
That's
Barry
cool.
Barry J. Kelly's direction is really cool. I love the world design. The background paintings are
Totally agree.
amazing.
The
Like the
design is amazing, absolutely. And I truly, it's not a knock. It's a great opening sequence. That cracks me
yeah
up. That's
yeah
fantastic.
the opening sequence is great. I like a lot of the jokes, the characters. I feel like they're kind of at the beginning part of the season they were kind of figuring them out. And now everybody's sort of kind of locking into their place. Um, sometimes it's a little bit more animated than I wanted it to be, but also like it's an animated show. Like if you're gonna do it, lean into it, and they are. And whether it sinks or swims, like they're doing it, and that's real. At the very least, they're taking a fucking swing. Like a lot
I
of the
I agree
issues
with that.
with the other Star Trek stuff we've been discussing is like you can feel people like half swinging and then being like, ah, fuck, wait, no, we can't do that. And that's where some of that stuttering, like stopping and starting comes from, where it's like either ideas that are started and then abandoned, or, even just like character setups that are like, oh, I can see what you were kind of going for with Michael being this supporting character who over the course of the show is going to rise through the ranks. She was raised on Vulcan, but she's human, which is an interesting dichotomy. But then they kind of like quickly realize that that's a little hard to write, so they pivot away from it.
Simplify. Yeah,
Yeah,
simplify.
simplify it. So, and that's fine. That happens all the time on TV shows. But specifically, the batting average on Lower Decks, for my money, is the highest of any of them. Like, I think
I
it's above 500 for me. I think it's really really solid.
Well, it's not above 500 for me, but I do. I've liked, and again, this sounds so condescending, and I don't mean it to. I like that third episode. I also like the episode where Boimler becomes intangible and is on that
Yeah.
ship, and they're going to go to the farm and
hmm
everything.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought I thought there was a lot of funny stuff in there. A lot of funny stuff. I love that there was an Eric's, brother alien of Eric's race, and I
Yeah.
thought that, and also I just liked how ominous and evil seeming he was, and then he left. He's like, "What? That's how I left." I thought
Yeah.
that was
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. And I love that they get to the resort planet and there's a bunch of pikes and chairs just beeping and
Yeah.
being tended to. And I
Yeah.
thought that was all great. I mean, no, that was legitimately funny. That truly, I think that
But
section.
even the humor aside, which I think apparently it works a little bit more for me than it does for you, but just putting the humor question aside, I think both you and I can agree that we want standalone Star Trek. Like, I don't know that I have as much a distaste for serialized stuff as you do, but I agree that I think Star Trek really hits the pocket, really dials in when they can build up a big back catalog of stories and then pick pieces of that to make into a bigger mythology. Like that's what
Agreed.
was so great about DS9, right?
Agreed.
Those last seven,
Oh my
10
god, that
episodes, whatever,
yeah. Oh my god.
they earned that because they did 6 seasons and they got the kinks out in the early ones. And the early ones weren't that great, but then they figured out, oh, this is who Julian is. This is who Dax is. This is how they interplay. And I
And even
think,
the Bajoran society and religion's place in Bajoran society, it was a slog, but it's like, yeah, but this is all necessary information. And when it
yeah,
all comes together, you're gonna understand this even more.
and I think that's one of the best aspects of the potential. I'm not going to say it has completely accomplished it, but the potential of Lower Decks is they're exactly what we've been asking, what we're talking about. They're one and done stories. They have beginning, a middle, and end, and
Agreed.
they move and they build. And
Yes.
that
And
is, if nothing else, if even if it wasn't funny, who gives a shit? It's that. It's a Star Trek story
well,
that builds.
they're in the right direction, and again, it is definitely an evolution of what we got from Picard and from Discovery. And I absolutely agree with all of that, and that's why I find, and again, this sounds like faint praise, but there were enough decent things in Lower Decks where I'm like, they're going in the right direction. It is a first season, maybe, and again, I come to it every week with optimism. That said, the eighth episode, Veritas, where they're on trial, I found incredibly insipid.
Really, I loved it.
I
I thought it was
understand.
great.
No, dude. Again, I know a lot of people that. Again, I know a lot of people that are praising Lower Decks and spend time talking. And in fact, one YouTuber that I watch his stuff, I don't agree with him all the time. Ketlowski is a really, I think, smart guy that goes deep into Star Trek. And he's like, this is the episode where it all came together for Lower Decks, and saying a lot of the same thing in you in terms of a lot of setup. We got to build. We got to understand who these characters are. Now the show can be what it wants to be. That was Kedlowski's argument for Veritas. I found it shrill. I found it really silly. And again, it's a cartoon.
I was good, but
John,
it's a comedy show. Of course, it should be silly. That's the goal.
I guess I understand that, but be funny. And I'm sorry, I don't think it's that funny. And secondly, the original animated series managed to be more Star Trek than,
but it wasn't a comedy. It was just an animated show. Like, and then there's 2 other animated shows coming, so you'll probably get what you're asking for.
Maybe. I mean, I'm looking forward to Prodigy. What's the third animated show?
Starfleet Academy, right? Isn't that what it's called?
Oh, I didn't realize that was going to be animated. That's great.
I'm reasonably certain. I believe. I mean, look.
I've been asking
It's 2020. Who knows what?
Yeah. But it is easier to make cartoons right now than it is.
Yeah, my understanding is that Prodigy is going to be more of like a kids show.
Yes, Nickelodeon.
And then Starfleet Academy is going to be more kind of like a teen, almost Avatar: The Last Airbender style in space show.
That's great. I've been honestly since Deep Space Nine left the air. I'm like, they should take O'Brien and do a Starfleet Academy show and have it just be cadets and O'Brien. And
I would love that.
Oh, yeah. Well, God, Cole Meany, he was amazing. And I really hope to God that Michael Dorn finally gets through to these guys and they let him do a Worf show, because I think Worf is a great character, and I think there's still a lot to explore with Worf as he gets older and where Deep Space Nine left off.
I completely agree.
Yeah. No, and again, man, dude, I swear, Dave, I've got Matthew Clark, the great comic artist. He and I will spend hours talking about Star Trek like you and I do, and he loves all new Trek, and then we talk about classic Trek, and we're always on the same page with classic Trek. Have I ever told you my dream ending for, especially how much I love Deep Space Nine, the way I would have ended Voyager?
No.
Okay, so here they reach Earth mid-season. Okay. Not at
the mid season 7.
Season 7. Everything that happens in Endgame, wasn't it called Endgame? I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Put that in the middle of the season. They get to Earth, welcome home, and then Admiral Paris and everybody else, welcome home. And then they look at the former Maquis. You're under arrest. You're under arrest. We're gonna have an inquiry, Captain Janeway, and explain your logs and how many times you violated the Prime Directive while you were in the Delta Quadrant. Then, and take the Borg for examination. And examination could be a very Section 31 kind of, let's tear her apart and see how she works kind of threat. Mm-hmm. And then you can do the second half of the stories that they did in Voyager, but to give them the umbrella of a naval inquiry, a Starfleet inquiry, and be like, tell us about that incident in Rigel 7. Oh, well, this is what happened, ... flashback. And that way, there would be a kind of like giving the characters a chance for hey, now they're back. Because wouldn't it be great? Because a lot of those second half of season 7 were slim stories. And wouldn't it have been better to see Harry Kim back with his fiancée, Janeway dealing with her former fiancé, and all of them coming home? Obviously, 7, fish out of water. Welcome home, Monica. I don't know who you are, and I don't know if I want you in my life. And there are all these interesting story possibilities that could have been explored in those 10 episodes, as opposed to another story with Q and his kid and just the kind of bullshit whimsy.
Yeah.
And I just, again, I'm like, it's too bad. And again, God only knows what they wanted to do versus what the network would let them do. Because we do know, and I'm sure you know, Enterprise would have had a much more interesting first season.
Yeah, they're supposed to all be on Earth, right?
Right. Braga and Berman got their way. Yeah, they wanted it building the ship and kind of explaining Starfleet and why the Vulcans are being assholes and sitting on Starfleet's hands, letting them explore and everything. That's more interesting than what we got.
Yeah, but John, we've got to know where the human poop goes. Don't you know? It turns into those containers in the Enterprise. That's where it goes. We have to know this. That's in episode like 3 or 4 of the first season.
You are killing me. That's fantastic.
No, I'm not even joking.
I didn't remember that. I believe you.
They literally say we make all of these shipping containers with human excrement. Like, I'm not even joking.
Ew.
Yeah, dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I like season 4, and there were of Enterprise, and I thought that was ambitious to give us 2 and 3 part episodes that were like mini
Mm-hmm.
movies,
Mm-hmm.
and I liked a lot about that. Yeah, I'm trying to think. So who do you think the shrill Enterprise characters were?
Well, it's weird because they want the show to be a trinity. They're trying to go back to the formula of Spock, Bones, and Kirk, and they want it to be uh, Archer, T'Pol, and Trip.
Right.
But they don't. None of those people. It seemed like they really liked each other all that much, maybe, or they just couldn't get the chemistry right. Like nothing quite gelled, and so there are periods where Trip is just kind of annoying. Like they just write him as just like I think they were trying to have it be like there's conflict between the three of them, and Trip is like the galvanizing problem
Right. Like,
child, and then the
okay.
two parents that are like trying
Okay.
to figure out whatever it is, but it never quite works. And the most interesting character on the show, Hoshi, is like almost given nothing to do for the entire show.
I do agree with that.
And
Well, and
same thing with
also,
Mayweather. Like Mayweather's backstory is so interesting, but they don't really do anything with him over the course of the show at all. Like I think he has
agree.
2 spotlight episodes, maybe.
Yeah.
And like he's such a cruel, like the idea of somebody who's born in space, never been to Earth, has all these complex ideas around like weren't his parents like they're like deep space shippers basically,
Yeah.
right? They're like
Yes.
pirates, right?
Well,
Yeah.
or truckers. I kind of thought they were more
Truckers,
like
yeah,
truckers.
truckers
Yeah.
is better.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's such an interesting idea. Like what? So if the future Earth is this very diverse, progressive, accepting, conflict-free zone, maybe the people that are deep space truckers are really shitty and ignorant. I don't know. Like that could be really interesting is of examining like a crew member who thinks aliens are gross or believes in all these weird conspiracy theories about Vulcans and how they have demon tails or something. I don't know. Like
Well, I agree, and I also think we got a little bit of it in Broken Bow, the pilot for Enterprise. But as opposed to the classic, these humans, they come with a new perspective. Perhaps they know more than we give them credit. It should have been like to Paul, to Trip, when the little kid is having trouble breathing
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and he doesn't realize the mother's weaning him off the breather and trying to get his lungs going on their own. And she's
Yeah.
like, basically says, this is a big universe. You don't know how everything works. I want you to
Yeah,
shut up and pay attention.
I
And
love that moment because the thing I want more of in Star Trek is for the Federation to be wrong.
Exactly. Yes.
Because there's an implicit white supremacy and colonialist thing happening in Star Trek, which is really weird.
Well,
like,
how much of that is imprinted on new Star Trek, and how much of that has always been there, part of Star Trek?
Dude, that's always been there because it's the
All
idea of Star Trek. The idea of Star Trek is humans are
Right.
a stand-in for Earth, which is at that
Sure.
unfortunately a stand-in for white America, right? We're
Okay.
going out and we're going to experience these alien cultures and we're going to show them the wrongness of their ways and we're going to enlighten them, which is literally what colonialism is.
No, I'm
like
happy.
it's
You're right.
one-to-one that.
No,
And
you're right. I don't disagree with that. That looking at it that way, I don't disagree with that.
and I think Star Trek is such an amazing positive idea. Like, you know, the idea that we can connect over our differences and that makes us stronger, that's important. Like with a capital I, in a way that a lot of other media franchises they just don't have. Like,
and I understand from a presentation standpoint that it is, hey, it's white America imprinting itself on all these third world kind of societies and stuff. It's a shame because the message was it just wasn't represented beyond Spock. Was actually we're a consortium of races. Please join us, and please.
I completely agree with that.
And,
I completely agree with that.
Things got subtler during Next Generation where they tried to impress that idea, and that was my frustration with Picard. Was it went back to the white colonialism, even down to dressing him in the white suit and the white hat when he's at the Romulan refugee. World.
And like that's something that I feel like there's so much potential for, and it's such an easy slam dunk. Like,
well, that's a good question to like have them fight over, and have Picard go, no, we represent the universe or the galaxy.
Yes,
and have an alien say, no, you represent Earth. And and your message is Earth is the only way, and we don't like it. And even Bajor even had that attitude with them.
Yeah, or even just the examination of even if the Federation doesn't represent, it isn't a metaphor for, in air quotes, white America, the captains, so because they're all human, they have human-centric biases, which inherently make their decisions warped. And that's something that I want Star Trek to be able to grapple with. That's something that I want to have dialogue about, of this idea of not white supremacy in the way that our current leaders are literal white supremacists. I want that in a structural white supremacy, in a let's examine how the ideas and the education systems and the policing apparatuses and the governmental bureaucracies that support the idea of these theoretically free exchange of ideas, and how that functions in the future. Like, that's what I feel like. There's so much meat there, you know.
I agree. No, I absolutely agree. This is interesting. Michael Cooper says, "Isn't the Prime Directive in direct opposition to the white colonialism model?"
Here's the thing, right? Colonialism in the Star Trek universe is, we're on a ship and we're going to an alien country, world, whatever, and we're gonna like interact with them and expose them to our ideas. So the Prime Directive, in its theory, is we're not going to do anything that's going to, well, one, we're not going to interact with pre-warp societies. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is we're not going to do anything to fundamentally shift their ideas.
Culture.
Or shift the course of their civilization, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that showing up and being, for lack of a better term, a visually distinct white person amongst a bunch of aliens that look like people of color. Like, there is an implicit first world racism there that we as Americans are
oblivious.
We're just that's just part of that equation that we're just not going to be always aware of. And also, the solution to every episode is always, well, the humans are right and they know what's right for these backward savages, which is like,
yes, you're right. No, you're right. And like I said, that's where I wish, especially Enterprise, where Starfleet's still figuring out the rest of the universe. Yeah, I would have liked them humiliated and humbled a little bit more of, it is a big world. It is a big universe out there. Maybe we don't have all the answers. Maybe we should listen.
And especially later in the show, like, it's very interesting because Berman and Braga were like, you know, fairly left leaning, and then what's his name? Renee.
The showrunner that took over?
Yeah, in the later seasons, Renee something. He was
Manny Cotto was the.
Yes.
Yeah, Manny Cotto was the showrunner in season 4.
Yes. He's a little bit more conservative leaning.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So you can, and it's funny because a lot of the stuff that happens later in the show is weirdly like white, and B, right leaning
that's interesting.
propaganda.
Now that's very interesting.
There's literally that episode where the Enterprise is going through it's not the negative zone. What's there's like that dead area. No, there's like that dead area of space.
Right. Like
whatever.
or whatever it was called.
Yeah, whatever it's called. I don't remember. It's been a couple years since I've seen it. But they're going through that area of space and they find another ship that has a piece that will allow them to repair the Enterprise. So they go to the other ship, kill a bunch of people, take that piece, and then it's never acknowledged ever again. It's basically just like, we do what we need to do, right? Might makes right, like, you know, by the ends justify the means, which is in contrast to everything else that Star Trek stands for.
Now but I would also point to the development of the Andorians, who start off very much as antagonists, and then you understand their plight.
That's a different idea, right? That's a completely structural.
Yeah, but again, that was an arc for them in Enterprise that you're pointing out a single episode, and also that kind of, to me, was Enterprises in the Pale Moonlight with DS9, where Sisko breaks all the rules because the ends justify the means.
Here's the difference, right?
I love this talk. Go on, please. Seriously, this is a fun disagreement about Star Trek. I like.
I agree. I mean, you and I, we have conversations like this all the time. I love debating Star Trek stuff.
Me too, buddy. Go on.
So the difference is, one is the show is saying Benjamin Sisko is breaking all the rules. Is this okay? and the other is saying Archer is doing the right thing, and this is okay.
Oh,
And
I
that's
see. I didn't
that's
take it that way. I didn't take it that way.
Archer never gets held accountable for
Neither does
murdering all those
Cisco.
people. Yeah, but that's actually a good point. He never does get held
And
accountable. That's a
yeah,
very good point.
and he keeps it quiet. And that's what I mean, man. And truly, I think both captains have to live with this. I just broke everything that I believe in. I'm gonna have to think about that. And yeah, and again, it's kind of this like terrible secret that there's no fucking way I'm gonna tell my
Yeah,
bosses about
I
this.
think it would be. I think specifically though, because that the In the Pale Moonlight thing stands on its own a little bit more, whereas
I
this
agree
is
with
like
that.
it's baked into that arc of them basically saying, we're going to defeat terrorism by any means necessary. Like that whole arc
I'm gonna have to
of
rewatch it, man.
episodes. Yeah, that whole arc of episodes is
That
just
season,
so, yeah, it's so specifically like you can tell that the
but
people in the writers room were grappling with how does the world look in a,
post nine
a
11,
post 9/11 world? How
yeah.
does it work where we have these implicit biases that we may not agree with, but also
But
some of us agree with, but
that was still Burnham and Braga. It wasn't Manny Coto. Manny Coto didn't come on until the fourth season, as far as showrunner.
oh, that's true. No, you're
So
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean
yeah, that's
that's
true.
so the liberal guys wrote that, and no, and
Yeah, yeah.
honestly, it does. I know that episode. I do want to rewatch it and really watch it with fresh eyes because this, David, seriously, this is exactly what I was hoping for in terms of Star Trek talk. Because I
I
mean,
mean,
man, it's the truth. I mean, really, Franco, Mitch, and I do the Trek rewatches. A lot of our viewers know that have been chiming in on the
yeah,
on the chat, and we all kind of are in agreement, and that's okay. But it would be nice to have a contrasting opinion, and that's why after season 2 of Discovery, I did one. I don't know if you saw the video. I did. It was 6 of us talking. Cully Hamner and I disliked Picard and Discovery, and the other 4 loved it. And I'm like, hey man, I am not expecting you to change your minds. I'm not expecting you to change my mind. I just want to hear you talk about what you like, and I want to tell you what I don't like, and see where the differences are, and
yeah,
without trying to judge. And it's totally cool.
yeah,
And
yeah,
truly,
yeah.
that's why. And yeah, this is great, and I love this because again, this is what I always help for in a first slight tangent with political discourse. I don't have all
Mm,
the answers. Neither do the people on the opposite side.
yeah,
Where do you see the problem that I don't, or where do you see the solution that I wouldn't necessarily see? And every now and then, it is like, wow, I didn't think of that. That really gives me something to reconsider. And I think
yeah.
we're all learning and we're all evolving. So, and again, this is something as trivial as Star Trek, but I think it's great. And
But it's
again,
not trivial though, John. It's not trivial. Like this is. I mean, I can only speak for me. For me, I think of. It sounds cheesy, but I think of Star Trek and these other comics as a medium and these various entertainment properties, and it's awful. I don't want to think this way because my emotions are at the whim of giant multimedia conglomerates. But I love and deeply care about so much of these things, and it's not. Unfortunately, it's not just like, oh, they're going to put out another thing and that's going to be cool. It's they mean more than that. They're our culture. They reflect who we are, both in positive and negative ways. And
agreed.
there are eras where Star Trek has been very bold and progressive and tried to do new things, and then there's eras where it kind of hasn't, and that's
Sure,
fine. I like a lot of that stuff too.
sure.
And they're like all of the J.J. Abrams movies have very specific goals. They want to be action adventure films, and that's great. I love action adventure films. Sometimes I wish they had a little bit higher aspirations in terms of maybe they could have a little bit more of the political leanings that the shows have, but that's also a little bit difficult to do in the movies. Some of the original continuity movies didn't have all that much political stuff. Like, what was the political nature of First Contact? I don't know. It's my favorite of those TNG movies, though. I love that
I agree
movie.
with that too. I agree with
But
that.
like,
Well, and that actually is more of a re-examination of where we were at that point as Zephyr Cochrane to where we come to, and I think both the Next Gen crew comments on where Zephyr Cochrane and his people are, and I think the Cochrane people like Lily and that take a look and say, hey, you don't have all the answers.
yeah,
You are,
and
or at the end of the day, you're just as base as you think we are, and I mean those are great moments and stuff. So So at least there's that weight of that specific argument in First Contact. So
Yeah,
no,
no,
and I know
absolutely.
what you're
But
saying. I
I
hear
meant
what you're
that
saying.
more of like, Star Trek Star Trek 4 is about like saving the whales, and it's not subtle. It's just like
It's a
we're here to
romp.
save the whales.
It's a romp. It's a comedic romp,
I love
and
that movie too. I
absolutely
love that
so do
movie.
I. And they earned after 50 or 40 years of playing it straight, of with the occasional piece of the action and things like that.
Yeah,
But no, we're gonna have fun. To this day, we're yeah, it's a simple little problem. It's us playing in the '80s, and look how fucked up the '80s are compared to us. And
totally.
oh my god, I mean McCoy and Chekhov. Well, all of them. The only one who poor Horror doesn't get a lot of moments in four, but Scotty's hilarious. Chekhov is hilarious. McCoy is amazing. I love McCoy in the hospital.
Yeah.
Just
I think my
sounds like a goddamn Spanish Inquisition.
like that movie gives McCoy the best moments he had in the entire franchise, maybe. But but his I will say his single best moment for me is in the motion picture when he shows up in the teleportation with a collar so wide it crosses his shoulder.
It's 1979, man. It's the year of the leisure suit. Believe me, I lived it. Sadly.
Love that shot.
Oh yeah,
I
and
don't.
the
I don't
Eye of
really-
Agamotto.
Oh my
he's got
god!
going. And the chest hair. It's like, yeah.
Damn it, Jim! I'm the Sorcerer Supreme. Like,
Your beloved Admiral Nagura.
oh my god! I
See,
don't have a,
and I love, and I guess because sadly, and I don't worry, I'm fine. It was literally 40 years ago. I lost my father at a young age, and that scene with his father is a great scene in Star Trek Five, and it's like that's cool, and I'm glad he got that moment as well. No, DeForest Kelley really was the secret weapon, and especially in a lot of the movies. Hell, Star Trek Six, when Kirk is kissing him Iman and everything, he's like, "What is it with you?"
yeah. Have you, John? Have you ever seen DeForest Kelley performing poetry? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh,
It's on
dude.
YouTube?
So, yeah, there's a panel, a Star Trek panel from like I think it was around the time that the sixth movie came out,
Okay.
and DeForest Kelley is doing it's like a spotlight on DeForest Kelley.
Sure.
So he's up there and he's like, "Hey, everybody, I'm DeForest Kelley. You probably know me from a bunch of Western movies." And everyone's like, "No, we love Bones." And he's like, "All right, okay. I was in Star Trek too." And then he's like, I wrote a poem that I want to read you. And you're expecting a poem to be what, 5 lines, 10 lines, nothing crazy. He gets up there and reads a rhyming couplet narrative poem about where the Star Trek franchise is and about where all the actors are and how they feel about the Star Trek franchise ending for like, I'm not even joking you, 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, I have to
like
watch
it goes
this.
on
This is great.
forever.
I would love that. That's fantastic. Oh
It's
my
amazing.
God.
It's amazing.
He's the best. No, and I love him and Oscar Goldman from $6 Million Man, Richard Anderson. They were contract players to their studios. McCoy with Paramount and Oscar Goldman with Universal, and they worked with everybody. And if you watch Turner Classic Movies, from noirs to big budget films, oh, there's DeForest Kelley. Oh, there's DeForest Kelley. Oh my God, look how young DeForest Kelley is. And color, VistaVision, black and white noir films. I mean, it is so murder victims, suspects. I mean, it's just great to see him. And I'm a big old time radio fan. And there's even 1 or 2 episodes of my favorite mystery anthology, Suspense. Tonight, Leonard Nimoy, or rather DeForest Kelley, and I'm like, that's great. Bones is doing radio. So yeah, I know I'm a massive DeForest Kelley fan, and all 3 of them are amazing actors. They really are.
Have you ever seen Night of the Lupus?
Oh yeah, the Lepus. Yeah. The giant rabbits. Yeah, what are you gonna do? That's like Scotty.
I love it, but oof.
That's like Scotty's in, and Roddenberry made it. The Rock Hudson weird movie, Pretty Maids in a Row, where Rock Hudson is the high school sports coach or coach or whatever that's killing kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, it's and there's and there's Scotty as one of the cops. So and was Chekhov in that as well? I can't remember if Chekhov was in that as well.
I don't recall him being in it, but also Walter Koenig when he's not Chekhov. Sometimes I don't always because his real voice is so different that sometimes he like goes by and someone's like, was that? Oh yeah, no, that was Marcus
Because
Phoenix.
truly, I was really happy for him that he got to be Bester in Babylon 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he was a lot of fun. He was a lot of
Yeah,
fun, and he really, you could tell how much he was enjoying
yeah.
being a bad guy and stuff. And it
Oh
was,
yeah,
yeah. And then he would much rather talk about Babylon 5 than Star Trek. I love
yeah,
that.
and
Go ahead.
I was just gonna tell you, in every scene, I was just gonna say in every scene that he's in, it just feels like he's just saying, "Haha, I'm not Chekhov, not Chekhov, not
Exactly.
Chekhov."
Exactly. No, he's having a ball. Absolutely, man. It's like, it's so great to actually have lines and a character with some depth. This is fantastic, as opposed to just, hey, Yakov Smirnoff in the mid 60s.
Nuclear vessels, nuclear
Yeah,
vessels.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
In Russia, we invented scotch.
yeah, yeah. Exactly.
Little old lady in Leningrad. I
Yeah.
love that shit. See, this is what I'm saying, man. No, I do you know Rob Burnett, the YouTuber?
Hmm. Hmm.
Honestly, I love to like Rob and I can go for 4 hours and just talk Star Trek. So I do appreciate that. Now,
Yeah.
you do have another comic book that is it out or is it coming out?
So Star Trek Voyager 7's Reckoning comes out November 11th, I believe. And then a week and a half or 2 weeks later, whatever it is, on November 24th, I have a creator-owned series coming out from Floating World titled Night Hunters, which is written by me, drawn by Alexis Zirrit, and lettered by Robert Negretti. And the high concept is that it takes place in Venezuela, 100 years in the future, where a dystopian law has been passed that if you want to have a child in a hospital, run for political office, or rent an apartment, you have to be or have been a police officer. So basically, there's two classes: police and everybody else. And everybody else, most of them are street urchins, homeless, kind of junk survivor types. And so the story follows two adopted brothers, one of which who gets sucked up into the drug gangs in the Yapo drug gangs in Venezuela, and the other one who becomes a cybernetically enhanced police officer and basically becomes an indentured servant to the police department because his body becomes a living weapon that has to get upgraded all the time because pieces are shutting down and they go on missions and his arm gets blown off. He has to buy a new arm, and the police department doesn't pay for any of that. So he becomes kind of caught in this tide pool or circular whirlpool where he's just keeps getting dragged down further and further and further into this corrupt police organization.
Okay.
And the book kind of follows these two adopted brothers as they kind of war with both their familiar relationships with each other and also this kind of idea of how do you exist in a corrupt system where there is no winning? Like there just isn't a way out. So what do you do?
I like it. No, I really like it. Is it a finite series or is it an ongoing?
Yeah, it's a four issue series.
Good.
Yeah, it's Alexis is drawing the fourth issue right now, so it'll be literally completely finished by the time issue 1 ships.
Oh, great.
Yeah. It's this kind of cyberpunk kind of bootleggy style Verhoeven movie. It's kind of like what if you took RoboCop and set it in Venezuela and then had Alexis draw it, and his artwork is amazing.
Yes.
So if you've read if anybody's read Tarantula or Space Riders, they know that his work is fucking face melting and it's great.
Is Space Riders ZD's book?
Space Riders is Alexis Zirrit, and Fabian Rangel wrote the first 2 arcs, and the third arc is written by Carlos. Oh, fuck me. He's my friend! Oh my god, why can I not think of his last name?
Oh, I hate when that... Dude, that's good, because usually when that happens to me, I think it's a senior moment. So that's,
my god, Carlos,
I feel for
I'm
you.
so sorry. I know your last name, Carlos. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Well,
Gaffoni. Carlos Gaffoni.
Oh,
Jesus.
awesome. It's all good, man. No, and really, I've met Carlos or Zarides Alexis, right?
Yeah, Alexis here.
Yeah, I met him years ago at one of Tony Moore's Cincinnati cons. I love his art.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I'm a massive fan of his stuff. So how's it going in local shops? Are you guys getting through or
good? Yeah, the pre-orders are significantly higher than I thought they would be, considering that Floating World is they're not like a huge publisher.
Right.
I mean, I'm very lucky to be working with Jason. He's been awesome, and most importantly, it's completely creator owned. John, I'm sure
Terrific.
you know this. There are a lot of companies that say that they make creator owned comics, and they are not.
Big liars. Yes, indeed.
Yes, lots of companies, like basically almost all of them. So if somebody is saying they make a creator owned comic and they don't say the words, and I actually own all of it, it's probably not creator owned. But my book with Alexis is creator owned because Jason at Floating World actually cares about creators' rights and doesn't fuck people over by taking 51%.
Well, and knowing what Alexis has done, maybe that's good, man. That in terms of maybe these stores are certainly aware of his previous work and stuff, and maybe they're
I mean, I don't think that we're getting all these pre-orders from me writing this Star Trek comic.
And dude, and I understand, and I appreciate what you're saying, but no, it's great. I'm really glad that you are working with Alexis because I've always enjoyed his stuff, and this is
he's amazing.
Great example of his work, and good world building here as well. And I'm really glad that it's coming through now. Obviously, it was in last month's previews.
It was in September. What month is this?
Yeah,
October.
This is October.
Yeah, it was in. Sorry, John.
No, it's all good, buddy. No.
Yeah, it was in September, and I believe final order cutoff is actually today. Ironically, so
we're recording on Friday the 3rd.
The 3rd, yeah.
Well,
so it was.
Make sure if your shop isn't carrying Night Hunters, you'll definitely want to get it because it really it's another great book, and it's from Floating World Comics.
Yeah, Floating World Comics. They put out Slasher from Charles Forsman, and they put out a bunch of cool stuff. All Time Comics by Josh Baer, and they put out a bunch of really cool stuff. I'm very, 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 very honored to be one of the people on their roster. We've been working on the book for a long time. I don't even know how long at this point. It feels like decades. But the fact that it's going to come out and it's going to be basically exactly what we wanted it to be. Like, we set out to make a weird, fucked up cyberpunk anti-cop Paul Verhoeven movie as a comic. And we did. And,
yes, you did.
For better or for worse, it is what it is. Hopefully we'll find people who like it. If we don't, I think it's awesome. And I don't mean that in the, I think my writing's great. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I had a vision, not to be cheesy, but I had I really want to write the best Alexis Ziric comic that's ever been written. I want to write cool car chases and crazy cyberpunk machine gun fights and drug deals gone wrong and, seedy underbelly corrupt cops being dropped off buildings, and that is exactly what we fucking made.
I hear you, man. Yeah.
That's probably not everybody's cup of tea, but if somebody came to me and was like, hey, guess what? There's a crazy fucking anti-police corruption and anti-police brutality comic set in Venezuela 100 years in the future, drawn by Alexis Ziric, I'd be like, sign me the fuck up.
Well, and truly, I've really admired Alexis's other comics, and this is another great one. So, and I'm glad you're the writer of it, and I only wanted to obviously reflect well on you. And seriously, man, no matter what, people will come, Ray, as they say in Field of Dreams. They will find you, Dave Baker. They will find your writing, and you will get you the audience that you genuinely do deserve. And when that happens, if they missed this book the first time around, much like Bendis with a lot of his caliber stuff from the 90s, people will go, oh yeah, so what'd you do before you started doing this? And you can go, here you go. And you got Alexis here at art to back you up, and I think that's terrific. Again, I think the Voyager book is great. I'm so glad. Is this the first time we talked since we talked about your Netflix movie? Not realizing that it was made?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I think so.
Alien Invasion? No, Alien...
Alien... So, the movie got written with the title Navy SEALs versus Aliens, and then was produced with the name Alien Warfare.
I was going to say Alien Warfare,
I'm thrilled about. That's a way better title.
The best thing, and for people watching and listening, if you don't know, Dave and I talk about this movie. Dave's like, I wrote it a couple years ago. I don't even know if it ever got made, whatever. And literally 3 days later, a Word Balloon listener sends me a screen cap of Alien Warfare written by Dave Baker.
Yeah,
and it was so Yeah, and am I right? Did it get you your Writers Guild like?
Oh man, I was shocked. I was like, it actually got made? Like this thing actually got made. Like, I mean, just to recap for anybody who didn't listen to our previous conversation, when I was in the meeting to first talk about making this movie, the producer confessed to me that he had been kidnapped by aliens. Like, it was weird. Like, normally I'm not one to talk out of school, but no offense to the people involved in this movie, I don't plan on working with them again because it was weird. And when you're sitting in an office and you're brought in and you're like, hey, we want you to write this movie. We read your previous script. We think it's really cool. This is what we're thinking. You know, we want to do like this action adventure movie where all these Navy SEALs get sucked up into this alien plot. And we have this MacGuffin and we're not sure what it is. And so the whole time people are, there's warring factions, people trying to get this MacGuffin. In the end, it turns out that it's a coffin and there's an alien body in it. Cool. I can write that. That sounds great. So then you write it. And then they're like, great, thanks, here's the door. And you're like, okay, that is the way the screenwriting world works. You do your draft, and if they like it, awesome. If they don't, awesome.
Have a nice day, yes.
That's how it works. I have real thick skin, nothing's personal.
Sure.
But when there's someone telling me that he got kidnapped by aliens, so we need to be respectful to the aliens in the movie, it's a little weird. It's a little strange, I mean, I'm not saying he didn't get abducted by aliens. Maybe the dude did. I don't know. But kind of was weird. And so, I wrote the movie and I turned it in. And I think I might have done one or two more drafts on it. I don't really remember. And then, that was kind of it. Everybody went their separate ways. It was a nice handshake. Good working with you. See you later. And then we talk maybe a year or 2 years after.
November
I told the story.
of 2018, I want to say.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Whoa, really?
Or maybe it was 19.
Years?
Maybe it was last year. Whenever poor Tom Spurgeon passed away. That's sadly how I remember our conversation.
Yeah, that was we talked the day he passed. Yeah. I
So,
think it was 19, but I'm just saying that just to make myself feel better.
And again, God only knows. I mean, in this post-COVID world, time has no meaning.
Yeah. So, we talked about it that day, and then, like you said, a couple days later, somebody found us. They found it on Netflix, and I'm not only am I shocked that it got made, but I'm shocked that I got screen credit.
Dude,
that's what's so crazy.
You're the top writer on that story, absolutely, and
it's
that
insane.
was the great thing. They froze it with the Netflix and Alien Warfare in the screen, written by Dave Baker, and it's like, holy shit, it got made. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, I'm very thankful to the people involved in the movie for keeping my name on it, because obviously they could have taken it off. I think it's really cool. I know a lot of people sometimes try to distance themselves from the more kind of schlocky stuff, but I think it's really cool. Like, those are the type of movies I like. Like, I really like really weird, bootleg, fucked up, kind of like we made this for $5 movies.
Coming up on in Word Balloon last week. And I really have to. I'm definitely going to write him an email this weekend. I was introduced to an action star named Alexander Nevsky, and he was a Mr. Universe bodybuilder. He grew up in Russia, was a fitness guy on Russian television, had a very popular fitness show because he was Mr. Universe. Came here in the early 2000s, met Schwarzenegger, wanted advice, wanted to become an action hero, and Arnold told him, make your own movies. Don't wait for opportunities. If they come, great, but don't waste any time. Make your own movies. And for the last 12 years, he's made 7 films. They're very much in the Schwarzenegger and Van Damme early mode. And he has a new movie out called Red Prophecies, and it's the usual B-movie suspects, and I mean that in a positive way. Michael Madsen, Casper Van Diem, before he passed away, David Carradine, Tia Carrera, Christina Loken from Terminator 3, all these people, and they're fun. They're a lot of fun. And there's
bro, this is 100% up my alley. 100% up my alley.
Dave, I was telling Mike Norton the same thing this afternoon when we were talking casually, and I'm like, you're gonna love this guy, and he could not have been sweeter. So we did this great interview, and he told me his story and why he makes the movies that he makes, and every now and then he's got an interesting role. He was in a small role in one of Sofia Coppola's movies where he played a Russian journalist. And just
wow, cool.
One scene. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it was really just such a lovely conversation. Good guy, and I'm rooting for him. And I love a straight to red box action movie as much as the next guy. And several of his movies are on Amazon Prime, and that's
Cool.
why Alien Warfare, just like that, I'm just like, hey, I'll as my buddy says, let's give it the 10-minute rule. And if we,
Yeah.
if we hate it after 10 minutes, we bail. But
Yeah.
usually something interesting happens and we stay through the movie and stuff. And yeah, man, God, a lot of Arnold's last efforts, a lot of Stallone's last efforts fit in those categories as well. And yeah, I'm up for and then again, I'm rooting for this guy Nevsky. He seems like a good guy, and he's a self motivator, and he gets it. And I mean, I follow his trajectory doing my podcast and doing the kind of broadcasting I want to do on my terms. And
Yeah,
that's
I
exactly what
mean,
as you know
this
with
is
your own
a
YouTube stuff.
that's what I was just gonna say. This is a perfect transition into that stuff. So I co-produce and write a podcast slash video show called Deep Cuts. Uh, the intro is "Welcome to Deep Cuts," the podcast where we pick a topic and walk you through the ins, the outs, and the nitty gritty, so you can appear like an interesting and idiosyncratic person at your next forced social function. Which basically means we're gonna pick something really weird and really obscure, and then we're gonna examine it with excruciating detail, and hopefully it'll also be funny. So it's kind of this weird edutainment thing. Um, right now, I'm writing an episode about My Immortal, which, if you don't know, is the most famous Harry Potter fan fiction, which no one knows the author of, and there's all these crazy conspiracy theories about it. And in the mid 2000s, somebody came out and pretended to be the author of My Immortal, got a book deal with Macmillan, and then it got revealed that they didn't actually write My Immortal, so the book deal got pulled. It's fucking crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, we've also done episodes on The Act of Killing, which is a documentary about the genocide that happened in Indonesia in 1965, where
Wow.
basically
Suharto, right?
yes, where basically roving gangs of right-wing, pro, in air quotes, democracy gangs indiscriminately murdered people and then claimed that they were communists. And so this documentary made by this guy named Joshua Oppenheimer, he went to Indonesia, interviewed all these old gangsters, and then started staging reenactments where the old gangsters would play themselves recreating how they murdered thousands of people. And
Wow.
it is the most amazing and arguably most important movie I think I've ever seen. Like, it's unreal. And the story behind the making of the documentary is equally as fascinating as the documentary. And we did like a 4-hour examination of the documentary in our scripted podcast show.
Is it Suharto or Sukarno?
Suharto is the 65 ghost. Sukarno is the guy before him.
Okay, because again, yeah, it's that year of living dangerously
Totally.
post period. Yes.
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 Yeah, and it's super fucked up. And if you'd like to know more, you can listen to our podcast, or more importantly, go
See the
watch
movie.
Act of Killing. It is deeply moving, deeply human, and a creative masterpiece. Like, I don't say that lightly. I like a lot of dreck, a lot of shitty dearth of just horrible cinema, but it's an actual, like, it's a film with the capital F. Like, it's important, and it's a mind map of a serial killer. Basically, it's because basically he takes this guy who was a capo in this, these gang murders,
Yeah.
and he gives him complete creative freedom, and the goal isn't to watch this movie that this gangster is making. It's to examine the choices that he makes along the way, and see why he omits certain details about how he killed this person, or maybe I want more blood for this garroting scene. Well, why? Well, because when I garroted this guy in real life, he was screaming and it severed his vocal cords and blood. All of these like excruciating, horrific crimes against humanity are laid bare in a dispassionate, emotionless, stark way that really allows you to examine the depths of human depravity and also the lies that people will tell themselves in order to exist with their own inhumanity. I just think Joshua Oppenheimer is, I mean, one, you should learn about this thing. Two, Joshua Oppenheimer is a genius. Three, the episode that we did about it is really funny. So
That
there's
sounds
a weird,
great, man.
there's a weird dichotomy there. But yeah,
Oh, that's and congratulations on coming up with a niche podcast that is its own thing, and it's very tough to at this point after 15, 40, 16 years of podcasting to find a new idea. So I think
yeah, and
that's
the way
great.
we do it is a little bit different too. Like, I'm a big fan of interview podcasts, so I like when people are just talking back and forth.
I
But I
have no
also
idea what
like,
you're talking about.
right? I know who. I don't know.
I guess okay.
Yeah, I guess. All right, they're fine. But I also like narrative podcasts or like monologue podcasts, like Karina Longworth's. You must remember this, where
I
it's
love
somebody
that
reading a
show.
script. Yeah.
Love that show.
So ours is a hybrid. So probably, you know, 50% of the time it's me or my co-host Andrew Price reading a script that we've written that's narrative. That's these are the ins and outs of this whatever topic.
Yeah.
And then half the time is us kind of diverging from the well-edited, musically scored, kind of narrative, sound effect driven stuff, and to us just kind of making dick jokes and talking about comics or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like that I make that joke only because it is kind of like a weird dichotomy sometimes for people where we handle somewhat serious topics. Like we did a whole deep. Oh, thanks. We did an episode. Somebody in the chat is talking about. We did a 3-episode arc on Chris Hansen, the former host of To Catch a Predator, which, if you're unaware, he started out as a normal journalist, did some really good stuff, very Crib Notes version. Then he became a weird online con man where he would endorse product. Like during COVID, he's endorsed a fake magic cure-all disinfectant that just like magically gets rid of COVID.
I had no idea he was doing this stuff. I know
To
Catch a Predator. I didn't realize his career had turned that way.
It's so crazy. Like he this is the weirdest one. He backed a cell phone racket done by the Nicaraguan drug cartel. Oh God, the super famous guy. What is his name?
El Chapo or
yes,
no.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. His brother ran a cell phone racket where they bought a bunch of Samsung Galaxies, put a sticker on it, and then mailed it to influencers. They reviewed the phone, took online pre-orders for the phone coming out, and then just left with all the money.
Wow.
And Chris Hansen is a part of it.
Wow.
Chris Hansen is like
there's Pitchman.
Oh yeah, he was a pitchman for it. Yeah.
Wow.
It's so crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, and
That's
so like
insane.
yeah, and like that's kind of the like area that the show kind of lives in, where it's we take these kind of topics that either you haven't heard of or you might be passingly familiar with, and then examine these, kind of walk you through everything, and then get to these really weird, fucked up, granular areas, like we did one about Bella Thorne, probably not your target demographic, John, but
Go on.
yeah, so we did one on Bella Thorne and how her recent kerfuffle on OnlyFans has fundamentally changed the economic system by which sex workers monetize their content. And she's basically just completely changed the way the internet now makes money off of things. But one person has changed this. It's so weird.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so the show is, we do that, and then we also do videos, which are a little bit lighter in topic. They're usually like us watching... It's like us watching Batman Dead End and being like, hey, that's a reference to Dark Knight Returns or whatever.
Sandy Colorado Batman Dead End?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he actually commented on the video, too.
Did he really? That's awesome. I really, early on in Word Balloon, I tried to get him on, and he totally big-timed me. And I'm like...
What?
I know, and I'm like... And it's fine, because I was nobody at the time, and I understand, but I'm like... okay, good luck to you. Whatever, man.
Well, I think you should try again, John. I think you should try again.
Whatever. He doesn't need my platform. That's quite all right. If he's content with whatever he's doing, God bless you, sir. I enjoyed Dead End, and I wanted to talk about it, but it's cool. It's all good.
Yeah, I also enjoyed Dead End, and I liked his feature, too, with starring Damien Poitier. What's that called? Hunter Prey. Hunter Prey.
Oh, I didn't know he made Hunter Prey. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's very cool. Is it based on the Top Cow property?
No, it's a sci-fi movie. It's actually probably pretty up your alley. It's a low budget movie. I think they made it for like $300,000, $350,000, something like that, $250,000. And the story is a spacecraft a spacecraft housing a prisoner crash lands on a desert planet, and two guards have to take this prisoner, alien guards in full face makeup, have to take this prisoner from point A to point B as an extraction point, and then it kind of the title Hunter Prey is because at certain points the prisoner is the hunter and the guards are the prey, and sometimes the guards are the hunter, and it's kind of a
That's
like
awesome. You know,
man's most dangerous game style
Oh,
thing.
sure. And do you know there's a great Lee Marvin, Toshiro Mifune film called Hell in the Pacific, and
Mm,
they're both. It's during World War II, and they're both stranded on an island, and yeah, at times the Yankee has the dominant role, and at the other times the Japanese gentleman has the dominant
yeah.
role, and it's a fantastic film. And in fact,
I'm gonna go on a limb and say that movie's probably better than Hunter Prey, but I like Hunter Prey for what it is. It's a fun,
no, that's
schlocky
cool.
science fiction and honestly, there's models in it. There's elaborate face makeup. Like I think they shot it in Mexico, and I don't know how the fuck those poor actors survived shooting in the Mexican desert with full body, like Boba Fett style body armor and face
Oh
appliances.
wow.
That is brutal.
God, I heard about that one Deep Space Nine episode with the Jem'Hadar, where they're in the desert and everyone was in full makeup, and truly, like people were collapsing from
Yeah.
the heat and everything. Yeah, no, I get it. That's amazing. All right, to wrap up, because you got some nice compliments in here. Ed says, please give Dave a Trek Show writers room, inner Trek Show writers room. We need this level of detail and care in the crafting the shows. I completely
That's
agree.
very, 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 very. Thank you. I would love it. Look, if anybody wants to talk to me about writing on Star Trek show, you know where to find me.
Ed mentions when we were talking about excrement being used to power the ship and everything. I always say I love Star Trek so much that I would watch a show called Star Trek Klingon Latrine Cleaning, because it's like I mean, literally, I blew off the West Wing to watch Voyager or
Yeah, yeah.
Enterprise, whatever was on opposite it, because I mean, anything called Star Trek, it's like, and that's my point of Klingon Latrine Cleaning. Great. When does it debut? What time? What day of the week and what time is it on? And I promise you, I'll be there, because in my 55 years of life, I've committed 50 of those years to Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I can't not watch Star Trek. And then truly, I'm glad that, and I never would expect this, because this is why, again, we're friends, Dave, that we can disagree. And then no point is it like, hey, if you don't like it, stop watching it. And it's like, no, you don't understand. I love Star Trek. That's not an option. It really
Yeah.
isn't an option. I really do want to see where the story is going, because, like you said, it is. It's cultural. It's important. It informs what's going on, and sometimes takes the pulse of where society is. And I kind of like that. And I like that our culture is being commented on in the guise of Star Trek and everything. So
I mean, honestly, though, I am. I'm just very excited that you liked Seven's Reckoning and weren't guns a blazing. And I would hope, since we are friends, I would hope that if you did have that opinion, you would come to me and be like, "Bro, you are fucking up."
well, I'd be nicer about it, but I would be like, all right, I'm not getting this. What are you trying to say here? No, dude, I swear. It's, folks, I can't say it enough. If you like Voyager, you're going to enjoy this story, and that's truly what's been great about IDW's run, because they even made sense of the Kelvin universe in ways that I feel the last two movies were lacking. But people like Mike Johnson, who wrote a lot of those Kelvin stories, he did a great job. I think Scott Tipton does, and David, I think they do a great job. I think J.K. Woodward, when he's drawing Star Trek, he's doing it with love, and nails it every time. I mean, truly, Gordon Purcell, another great Star Trek artist, and Angel Hernandez, who you've got working on your story. Great artists, great stories. I love Year 5. I think that's been an excellent IDW series as well. I'll admit I haven't been reading the Discovery comics, but again, based on what I've experienced with everything else, I'm sure they make sense of things that
Yeah.
I get frustrated with Discovery and things like that. So no, congratulations. I think Seven's Reckoning is a fantastic story. It's going to be 4 parts. The first part, again, out in November,
Hmm.
and then also your other book. And forgive me, I'm
Night
blanking.
Hunters.
Night Hunters, also coming out at the end of November.
Yep.
So good work, Dave Baker. Well done.
Thank you very much, John Suntress.
You need to come back, and we'll talk more Star Trek, and we'll have our opinions of Discovery. We'll see how season 3 goes. And
Yeah, you know what though? Just before we go, season 3 is exciting to me because the most of even look even if the show was exactly what it was, but you just took the Spock element and you took the it's in the past element, I would like the show like significantly more, like 30% more, just because there's so many weird little intricacies and inconsistencies that spawns, and I still like some of the stuff they've done and some of the stuff I didn't like, as I've said. But taking it and putting it in the future, pulling Spock out, that in and of itself is just like, oh, see, this is good. You're listening, you're taking into account what people have to say, and you're really trying to make a cool, adventurous new thing. And that sounds awesome to me. Like,
I
the
agree with
trailer
you.
looked cool for the 3rd season. Like, it looked really cool. And also, Ash Tyler, who is a character who kind of seemed a little, rudderless. They had an idea with him, but then they kind of didn't really know what to do with him there. And then over here he worked, and then over here he didn't work as much. And it seems like he's just not going to be in the show anymore. And who
No,
knows?
he was left behind. He's still in the
I mean, who
23rd
knows, right? He
century,
could
I
still time
think.
travel to the future and blah blah
I
blah blah blah.
suppose. Well, and also it looks like obviously they've got a new love interest for Burnham in
That's
this new character,
perfect.
and I agree with that.
Perfect.
And I also
Like,
think I agree with you in terms of I would have accepted a lot more of the Klingon Empire if it was 100 years in the future, and suddenly they were saying, "We got too chummy with the Federation. We've lost our way. Kalis wouldn't approve of what we've been doing." That would make more sense philosophically.
totally. I mean, even just the fact that in that opening, 2-parter pilot thing, they put the bodies of the Klingons and in sarcophagi on their ship as armor. Great idea, but not for the Klingons, because Klingons, as soon as your life leaves your body, you're just a hunk of meat. They don't give it. Their culture doesn't give a shit about dead bodies. So if it was in the future, it could be our culture has changed. We've evolved. Now there's a sect of us that gives a shit about the bodies, because that was a barbaric way that our ancestors did before the virus that gave us these weird forehead things. But now we're this way. Whatever the reason is, at least it's a change. It's an evolution, as opposed to we have this really cool idea.
Yeah, and again, imprinting it in the past and saying, "Oh no, it's canon," and it's like, no, it's not canon. You're rewriting shit, and we don't like it, frankly. That aspect of it, at the very least.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah, I think what I'm saying is I think that there's a lot of cool things that Discovery is setting up with this new status quo, and that status quo is very exciting to me, and I'm very optimistic and excited to see the new season. It's coming out soon, right? Isn't it this month?
Literally, next week is the last episode of Lower Decks on the 7th, and on the 15th, we get the first episode of Discovery Season 3. Right away.
Cool.
No break, nothing. Just here's more Star Trek for you, which is smart.
I mean, look,
And
CBS knows where their bread's getting buttered.
I remain optimistic, and truly, when I dislike an episode, my attitude is maybe I'll like next week's better. So,
Yeah.
There you go. Well done, David. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll talk more Star Trek and other things. We didn't even talk about another byproduct of our last conversation. We'll save it for next time.
Yeah.
In terms of, I think, a movie conversation that you had.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
I didn't know if you wanted to reveal that or not. And if you don't, we can keep it quiet. So
I mean, we could talk about it. Sure.
we'll talk about it next time. We'll definitely talk
Okay,
about it next
sounds
time.
good.
But, all right. Thanks a lot, David. Well done.
Yeah.
Excellent. David Baker, everybody. Jesus.
Live long and prosper, John.
Indeed. Peace and long life. Absolutely. Infinite diversity and infinite combination. Great conversation with Dave Baker. You got to check out Seven's Reckoning, IDW, Star Trek Voyager. You're not going to go wrong. And truly, if you're itching for a great Star Trek story, you're going to find it with Dave and Angel Hernandez. Thanks a lot for watching. Great stuff next week on Word Balloon Live. Monday afternoon, John Romita Jr. How about that? I have not talked to John in about 5 years. It'll be our first video conversation. I miss him. He's one of my guys. When I see him at a convention, I'm like, Johnny, I miss you. It's great to see you. One of the nicest guys in comics. So we're talking to him on Monday. And then later in the week, we're going to be talking to Kelly Thompson on Friday. So lots of great stuff in between. I'll tell you more about it next week. So join me on Monday for John Romita Jr. in the afternoon. And more great stuff throughout the week on Word Balloon Live. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, everyone.